Hi everyone, and welcome to my latest video. Today I'm going to go a bit deeper into the exams you have to do to become a financial advisor. So I have previously done a video about what you have to do to become a financial advisor, but now I'm going to go into each examination one by one and break it down for you so you know what you're in for when you start doing them. So we're going to kick off with the first exam, which is called R01, and it's the one I would expect everyone to do first because once you've done it, you can start advising with supervision. So as I said, once you complete the R01 examination, you can start to advise as a financial advisor as long as you're supervised by someone senior in the firm and who is qualified to be a supervisor. Now the R01 exam is called Financial Services, Regulation and Ethics, and as it sounds, it's quite a dry topic. So unfortunately, it's the driest of all of them in my opinion, but it's the one that goes into the depth behind everything that is the foundations for the financial services industry. So though it might not actually have anything practical in it that you will use when you are advising clients, it's stuff that you need to know for the basis of all your knowledge. Because it's quite a dry topic, personally, I found it quite difficult to get my teeth into. There are a lot of acronyms that I learn or that I put to things just so I could remember them, so that's quite a handy tip. But it's certainly something that you need to reread the textbook more than once just to get your head around things, and there are certainly other tools at your disposal that you can dive into and to make use of. You can apply for a paper textbook and an electronic textbook, or just one or just the other. I prefer a paper textbook, to be honest, because I find it easier to actually physically sit and flick through books, highlight them, put stickers on them, but everyone works slightly differently. If you do prefer an ebook, then you do have the PDF version, and you do get that if you buy the paper textbook anyway, but I believe you have the option to just get the ebook if that's what you're after. The textbook is quite long and there are lots of sections within it, but it actually focuses on 11 separate syllabus outcomes that you should know by the end of the topic, and that will come up in the exam. I have the 11 syllabus outcomes here, so I'm just going to read them to you. Funnily enough, I don't know them off by heart, but for each outcome, I'll tell you how many questions will come up in the multiple choice exam. The learning outcome 1 is to understand the UK financial services industry in its European and global context. That has 6 standard format questions in the multiple choice exam. Learning outcome 2 is to understand how the retail consumer is served by the financial services industry. This has 12 questions. 12 standard questions in the exam. Number 3 is to understand the legal concepts and considerations relevant to financial advice. That has 9 standard questions. Number 4 is understand the regulation of financial services, and that is 6 standard questions. Number 5, understand the financial regulator's responsibilities and approach to regulation. This is a big one. It has 29 questions in the exam. Number 6, apply the principle and rules as set out in the regulatory framework. This has 4 standard formats and or 5 multiple response formats. So I'm just going to pause here and elaborate on that. So a standard format question means you get a multiple choice question and you have 4 or 5 options, and only one of those options is right. A multi-response question means you get a question and 4 or 5 options, but more than one of the questions is correct. I don't know how many that is. It might tell you in the question that 3 of them are correct or 2 of them are correct, or it might give you no hint whatsoever. So it's really unhelpful. But essentially there could be answers that 2, 3, or maybe even 4 of the answers are correct. So do watch out for those, but it does warn you when you get to that point in the exam. I will dive into the exam itself a little bit later, but let's just carry on with the syllabus outcome at the moment. So learning outcome 7, apply the regulatory advice framework to ensure fair outcomes for the consumer. This is 5 standard formats or 8 multiple response formats. Number 8, understand the range of skills required when advising clients, 4 standard format questions. Number 9, to understand the financial regulator's use of principles and outcomes-based regulation to promote ethical and fair outcomes. This has 7 standard format questions. Number 10, apply the code of ethics and professional standards to business behaviours of individuals. 2 standard format questions. And last but not least, critically evaluate the outcomes that distinguish between ethical and compliance-driven behaviours. That's 3 standard format questions. Now, as I'm sure you can tell from all of that, it's really, really dry content, but it is stuff that you need to know to pass the exam. So I would advise you get stuck in, read all the questions, read the textbook more than once, highlight sections that you want to go back to, etc., etc. Everyone has their own learning styles, so just do what's right for you. You also have access to something called Revision Mate. If you sign up to the CII Online Learning Centre, you have access to Revision Mate, which is the electronic version of the textbook, some help in terms of extra things, extra case studies, some mock questions, some mock tests. They could be really helpful, and some other resources that are also really helpful to use. So once you've read the textbook through, go and have a look at Revision Mate and do some of the tests and see how you get on. There are also historic case studies available, or historic tests available from the CII website that you can get as well. So do have a look at those, because the CII wording of questions can be quite tricky and challenging, and it's really helpful to read the question 2 or 3 times before you attempt to answer it. Now, in terms of the exam itself, once you're ready to proceed to booking the examination, you can book that online through the CII website. It's quite straightforward. Certainly now I think they're doing some of it remotely, and they might continue to offer that. But when I did it, I chose what learning centre I wanted to go to, and they gave me a list of dates that I could choose. Now, on the day, you'll turn up at the exam centre if you're going to an exam centre. Otherwise, you simply log in online at home and do it. But you'll log in, they'll give you all the information before you start the exam about how the exam will proceed. They'll tell you it's a multiple choice. They'll tell you how long you have, how many questions it has. From memory, I believe it's 100 questions and it's an hour long, but don't quote me on that. I will clarify that in the description below. But they will give you each question, they will give you the number of answers that are correct. Assume it's 1 unless they tell you otherwise. So they'll set the question out and they'll give you 4 or 5 different options. Assume that one of those is correct. They will tell you in the description, and they'll tell you in the question if it's more than one answer that you should be selecting. You can flag questions as you go through. So if you're not sure, I would suggest just picking something and moving on, but flagging it to go back to later, because if you run out of time and you haven't put an answer, you just won't get a mark. So it's worth just trying to put down some sort of answer just as a chance, but flagging it and going back to it later. That's what I would advise you do. Now, they do say you get less than a minute to answer each question, but just try and stay calm throughout the exam. Just try and answer each question the first time you go through. But as I've said, flag up ones you're not sure on, and then when you've completed them all, go back to the flagged ones and just have a read through them and try and answer them again if you're not quite sure. Once you've finished it, you get your result immediately. So you'll submit it and the invigilator will tell you straight away whether it's a pass or a fail, but they won't tell you what result you've actually got. They won't tell you what percentage mark you've got. You'll get that via the post or via email later, but you'll be able to know straight away whether you've passed or failed. If you fail, don't worry about it. You can rebook online, or rebook and do it again quite quickly afterwards. I'm not quite sure what the current pass rate is, but it's generally pretty solid, I think. With the R01, because it's your first multiple choice exam and it's the one most people do first, it can be more of a test, a bit of a way to just get used to the situation, get used to how they're carried out. Try and go in positive and definitely use all the resources that are available to you. I hope that's been helpful as a breakdown of R01. I am going to be going through all the rest of the RO exams, ROs 1 to 6, and hopefully that'll be helpful in terms of getting you ready and prepped for your exam preparations. But if you've got any questions about the examinations, please let me know. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next time.